Hi, I'm Scott McGregor. Welcome to Railway Adventures across Australia and my Victorian adventure. I feel like a kid who's got Dad's car for the weekend. What a little beauty this is. It's a rare diesel electric rail motor. It was built in 1932 at Victorian Railway's Newport workshops. Its official name is RM58, but everyone calls her by her pet name, Daisy. They reckon it's the last one of its kind still running on the main line. They being the people I borrowed it from. Once again, power, friends and influence. I've got to give it back, of course. But hey, what a great way to enter the grand old city of Melbourne. In Victoria, all lines lead to Melbourne. So we're going to start and finish this episode of Railway Adventures in Melbourne. But not before we take in some of the history of the great places Victoria has to offer. You know, following the railway lines here is like following an old treasure map. And that's exactly what we're going to do. This place is full of riches and well worth exploring. But meanwhile, Melbourne's always had a fairly conservative image, I reckon. Home of old money, the playground of the rich pastoralists, Victorian-era conservatism and all that. Well, I'm here to tell you, that's all changed.
Hello! Welcome to Melbourne! Ready with the streamers? 1, 2, 3! Whoa! Not a one! Not a one! Welcome to Melbourne! Good afternoon, Scott.
Sir Roderick Quantock.
How do you do?
What a pleasure it is to see you.
Lovely to see you.
Hello.
Is it happening tonight, girls? It's happening tonight.
Well, let's rock and roll.
OK, we've got to go. Thanks, girls.
Thank
See you later. Come along with me. I hope we don't have to roll those streamers up.
Rod Quantock would have to be one of Australia's best-known and most popular humorists, and he's agreed to show me around the International Comedy Festival. It's an annual event here in Melbourne, and it's definitely not conservative. Why did the whole comedy thing take off in Melbourne? What is it about Melbourne?
Nothing else to do.
Nothing else to do, is that it? Rod's an all-time favourite at the comedy festival, and his one-man show is a sellout. I tell you, this is really pumping.
Yeah.
You've got a crowd all the way down the street here.
That's for me.
That's for you.
Step, step, step. Let's go, go, go. Have your tickets ready, please. Time to
Now,
go.
in these tough economic times, even a top act like Rod Quantock can't afford front-of-house staff. No problem. All that's required is a little multi-skilling. Rod becomes his own ticket collector and warm-up act, all rolled into one. I'm sure that some of the entertainments happening here tonight would cause the dignified gentlemen who walked these corridors a century ago to turn in their graves. But when you think about it, even back in the old gold rush days, things must have been pretty lively in the pubs and music halls around here. So I guess, in many ways, things haven't changed much at all.
Good luck to you, you and you. Yeah, rock!
Martial law has been declared.
In 1851, there were 77,000 people in Victoria, and then gold was discovered. Over the next year, 95,000 people arrived. As many as 1,000 people a week were arriving in Melbourne alone. The place just exploded. In no time, Melbourne became the most active and wealthy city in Australia. This is the ceiling of the upper house in the Victorian Parliament. The gold leaf on that ceiling's not fake, you know. It's 23 carat. Goes to show how much cash was floating around at the time. Now, although Melbourne was the smart place to be seen at the time, the real action was happening further north on the goldfields of Ballarat and Bendigo. The main problem with the influx of so many people to the goldfields was servicing them. The more food and equipment that headed north, the worse the roads became. Consequently, by the second half of last century, the railways enjoyed an incredible era of growth in Victoria. Railways like this well-preserved branch line at Malden sprang up all over the country, taking people to their destiny in the goldfields. At Malden, vast quantities of gold were discovered. In fact, it's said that in today's prices, it yielded over $990 million worth of gold. Nowadays, the Malden Railway earns its living through tourism, taking people on joyrides, 40 minutes up the track and a long way back into the past. The Ballarat Railway Station. What an appropriate place to park old Daisy.
Not bad for a country station, hey? Anyway, back to the gold. The reason I've come here is to explore this country because of all the gold production in Australia, 9/10 of it came from Victoria. The main gold producing areas were Ballarat and Bendigo. In fact, here at Ballarat, it was the largest alluvial gold deposit in the world at the time.
Gold was discovered here in 1851, and as time went by, this gracious Victorian-era city sprang up. But in the very early days, things were pretty makeshift. This is Sovereign Hill. It's a very accurate recreation of early Ballarat. Sovereign Hill itself is built on the site of some of the very first diggings at Ballarat, and it provides a fine insight into what life must have been like in those early days on the goldfields.
These fellas over here are in our ground. I'm sure they come across there. Look,
Hey, fella! Hey!
You're in our ground. No, you're in our ground. Hello? Hey, look, we've got our licenses.
Gold mining in the old days was pretty rough and tough. Miners not only had to contend with terrible living conditions, but also the corrupt authorities. You see, in the early years of the gold rush, you had to have a licence.
Check O'Reilly, I've got a problem with him.
The police continually harassed the miners, checking them constantly. If a miner didn't have one, he was forced to pay a heavy fine.
Come on, here.
This situation eventually led to one of the most important events in our history, the Battle of the Eureka Stockade. It was here in Ballarat, and for the first time on Australian soil, that men fought and died under their own flag, the Southern Cross. Brutal policing, corrupt government officials, and a lack of representation in Parliament caused resentment amongst the miners. The situation boiled over in 1854. The Battle of the Eureka Stockade only lasted 20 minutes. The diggers were completely overrun. 22 miners and 3 soldiers were killed.
And so, as they say, the rest is history. The diggers may have lost the battle,
but it could be said they won the war. Soon after, the gold licence system was abolished, and the diggers got the right to frame their own gold mining laws, and they got their representation in Parliament. It'd be fair to say that the Eureka Uprising was the beginning of democracy for all Australians.
Got the flagman up ahead, got the yellow flag. Better slow down, there's going to be a couple of detonators in a moment.
As the rail motor runs over them, the detonators go off.
Oh.
This is the way track gangs warn train drivers that there's someone on the line.
I've got the track gang just up here. Got to slow down to 5 clicks. Keep up the good work, fellas.
In Bendigo, there's a completely different gold story to be told.
Now, when I said that people flocked here from all over the world to get their share of the gold, it stands to reason I wasn't just referring to white Anglo-Saxon Protestants or Irish Catholics.
In the 1850s, tens of thousands of Chinese fortune seekers from the Pearl River Delta, west of Hong Kong, fled poverty, land feuds and devastation brought on by the opium trade. They boarded ships for what they called Dai Gum Sun, or the Big Gold Mountain, better known to most people nowadays as Bendigo. Russell Jack, a leader of the community in Bendigo, describes how the Chinese played a huge but not always happy part in the history of the goldfields.
Understand firstly that most of them were indentured. And they had to try and find enough gold to send back to China to pay their landlords, because they had paid for the fee for them to come out here.
Formidable obstacles were put in the immigrants' way by the European colonists.
Well, because they spoke a different language, they ate different food, and they worked very long hours, they treated dreadful. Not only that, you know, there were no women out here either. They didn't want them to breed. A lot of them died very young age because of loneliness and sicknesses that they never encountered back in China.
So they wouldn't lose their heritage, the Chinese community in 1882 raised £750 amongst themselves. With this money, they imported more than 100 crates of processional regalia. The Bendigo collection is now one of the finest collections of Chinese ceremonial artefacts surviving anywhere in the world today. Bendigo has always had ceremonial dragons. This one, Lung, dates back to 1892. The current incumbent, though, is a fellow called Sun Lung.
Magic.
And he's a beauty.
So this is Sun Lung?
Yeah, real dragon. Isn't he big?
Fantastic.
Want to see how big he is?
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look.
All right.
At 110 yards long, Sun Lung is the world's longest imperial dragon. Made of silk and embroidered with over 90,000 mirrors, everything on the dragon is symbolic of something.
It's a rain dragon. See the blue mountains?
Yeah.
Snow on top of the mountains? The snow melting coming down the rivers and the oceans.
Just what you need, a rain dragon for a drought-ridden continent, don't you?
Yeah. And then the mirrors, they reflect all the evil spirits, frighten them all away.
I see. How many blokes did it take to carry it?
54, the one time.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, in case you hadn't noticed, that was a leading question. You see, it's Easter time, and each year at this time, he's woken to the clamour of drums and cymbals and the thundering of firecrackers in order to take part in the Easter Monday parade. And I've heard that sometimes they need some extra volunteers to carry him.
How many have you got today?
Oh, just a little bit short. Want a job?
Yeah, well, I'm here for the day.
Okay, we'll put you on the tail.
On the tail?
Yeah.
The Easter Carnival dates back to 1869 and is said to be Australia's oldest surviving carnival.
So what do I do now, Russell? What do we do now?
What you do now is you've got to go out and get your job ticket.
Of course, it's not just Sun Lung that needs volunteers. There's also prince and princesses, warriors, lions, and sundry other characters that all need people to carry them or play a part in the parade.
Do you know what you are?
Yeah, princesses. We're
Princesses, hence the makeup. With the eyes, yeah. You're a princess on the horse, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay, and you're obviously a horse rider.
No,
You're not, you're not. You've got your little ticket today. What are you going to be?
An animal.
An animal. What are you fellas going to do today? You don't know yet?
I'm carrying a weapon, I think.
You're carrying a weapon?
Yeah.
Yes, this is what Russell has suggested for me, the Sun Lung section. First time I've been to Sun Lung.
Once you've been checked into your groups, we line up for our complimentary meat pie and sauce. That's very Chinese, isn't it?
Pie in the pasty. Hang well here.
This is to give us the strength we need to keep us going in the march.
Yeah, right.
Usually on the tail, we usually get nothing.
It's sustenance, Davo. This is what we need.
Perhaps the tail's gone up ahead. David, you'll smoke too much.
Okay. I feel like I'm in this gang. The tail gang.
This is like organising extras on a film shoot. Though I think this one's better organised than some I've been on.
You want the gaiters? Yeah, beauty. And the gaiters and the sash. Yep. Lovely, thank you. 16.
In a relatively short space of time, everyone's organised, fed, given their costume, and then shown how to dress.
Number 8.
Put your pants on with the tie to the rear and bring it round to the front of your waist and tie it up. Fold the flap over.
Do they symbolise different things, Russell? Symbolise colour and movement, I'd say.
You'll see a bit of movement in a minute. Those who are putting their gaiters on, the narrow part of the gaiter, start at the ankle and work your way up the leg.
Let's get that. Now, so something will do a session. I'm just doing some limbering up exercises too for the dragon tail business.
But everybody else start looking at the rear pole, just work yourselves along the dragon, make sure there's one person to a pole all the way around, okay? Not very high, just off the ground. Slowly.
It's time for Sun Lung to wake up and move. But getting him up and unwinding his long body from around the perimeter of the museum and out the front door is an exercise that must be carried out with military precision. And we're off. No rips, no tears. Everybody travelling in the same direction at the same pace. So far, so good.
Here we go.
Sun Lung always brings up the rear of the parade, which has actually been in progress for some time already. Dragons have been parading in the carnival since 1892. In fact, Bendigo has long been known as the #1 dragon city outside China. Mick and his mates have been carrying the tail for 20 years, so it's quite an honour to get a look in at all.
All the crowd can see you, but they can't see the stomach.
Oh, right.
We're out in the open.
Right.
So they can see what's going on, they can see the changeovers. And...
Oh, because the tail's up high, isn't it? That's...
Mick will yell out to you and say, hey, Scott, come out, change. And you
so I get underneath.
And he helps you put it in your little pouch.
And we've got to keep it active all the time, looking good. But the problem is you can't see where you're going.
You just accentuate whatever the person in front of you is doing.
Accentuate. So if you're running, I'm galloping.
That's right.
That's a real high. No wonder you keep coming back after 20 years, Mick.
Yeah, it's good fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it is good fun.
The Chinese community in Bendigo are very much a part of the scenery here. They're proud of their heritage and the part they played in the history of the goldfields. And if you think about it, it's hard to imagine this parade, or in fact, the goldfields story itself, without them.
Here's the tail coming backwards, my man.
To the clamour of drums and cymbals and the ear-shattering explosions of firecrackers, Sun Lung is made to retreat back to his lair, to sleep for another year. While over at the railway station, another kind of dragon prepares for its journey home.
The station master's asked me to put my rail motor into the carriage shed here because he wanted to marshal a couple of giant steam locos into the station. The passengers, I've just found out, have been to the Dragon Festival just like me. Woo!
These R-class locos were the last passenger steam trains built for this country.
You got the top job, haven't you?
They used to call them the greyhounds of the rails. They've brought people up from Melbourne for the day, and now they're on their way home again. I'd love to join them, but I guess there's just not enough hours in the day to do everything. Besides, we're heading in the opposite direction. Colourful past hangs over this place like a cloud of steam. Echuca was once the biggest inland port in Australia.
This used to be the busiest railhead in the country at one point.
The locals call this the meeting of the whistles, because it was here that the trains and the riverboats would meet. The wool would be loaded off the boats onto the trains for shipment out to Melbourne.
The riverboat era brings to mind all kinds of evocative images. Men and women working their way up and down the river, competing for cargoes, towing barges, navigating the ever-changing and sometimes dangerous waterway with its shifting sandbars and hidden snags. Today, the chug of the steam engines and the slap of the paddle wheels can still be heard on the river, except these days, the valuable cargo is tourists.
Now, you know I'm into steam locomotives. One thing I'm fascinated to find out a bit more about, steamboats. Sorry, I'm a bit late.
Oh, well, you're here now, that's the main thing.
This is Claire. She's a riverboat devotee from way back.
Claire!
She's offered to show me around the object of her affections, the riverboat Alexander Arbuthnot.
So what's the story of this lovely old vessel?
Oh, isn't she beautiful?
Isn't she great?
Yeah, she's magic. Yeah. She's the very last working boat they ever built.
Is that right?
The trade was really over when they built her, but somebody had a dream.
Yeah.
1923, so it's 75th birthday this year.
And just like any good steam engine, the heart of the beast lies in its boiler.
So, John, I'm into steam locomotives, but I haven't had much experience with paddle steamers before. Are there any particular quirks with this type of boiler and this type of arrangement?
Oh, not really. It is a loco-type boiler.
Yeah.
Fire tube.
So it is like a giant steam locomotive, except it's got paddles instead of wheels.
Yes, more or less, yeah.
And you mostly burn wood, you don't burn coal?
No, coal's too hot.
Too hot?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Plus it's too expensive.
Ah, yes, you've got to think of that, don't you?
Yeah. A particular boat only burns a tonne a day.
Gee, that's nothing, is it?
No.
No, tonne a day.
Okay, just along here, and this is the nervous centre.
The nervous centre.
That's the one, and that's the nervous captain.
How you feeling there, Captain? Nervous?
I certainly am.
Neil Hutchinson is the very laid-back captain of the Alexander Arbuthnot, and he's far from nervous.
Yes. With a wheel this size, I'd be nervous too, I think, mate.
Oh, yeah. Matches the rest of the boat.
What, big wheels all round, eh?
Yeah.
So how long you been working the boats?
I've been on this boat for 4 years and
right.
Brought up with boats.
And do you do a bit of everything on the boats too?
Oh, yeah. Fire them, drive them, mend them and bend them, all sorts of things.
The course of the river changes all the time, doesn't it?
Certainly does.
But you can be pretty sure in the centre of the river she's all right.
Oh, yeah, not always. Different places it can be shallow in the middle.
Neil's pretty relaxed about it, but there can be no doubt that navigating these waters needs a watchful eye, lots of local knowledge and plenty of skill.
That's the slipway there. They've got to pull the boats up once every couple of years to make sure that they're seaworthy. So I said they use that slipway there to make sure that the boat's seaworthy.
Yeah, that's the correct term.
Is it?
Yes, you've done good.
See, I was right.
You've done good. I can't think of any other term I'd use.
No. River
Ship
worthy.
shape?
Ship shape.
I soon found out that there was a serious difference of opinion between river folk and us train lovers.
Do you like trains, Claire?
Oh, they're all right if you can stand on the platform and watch the steam trains. Forget the others.
Oh, yes.
Once you get on the train, what are you going to look at? Just get soot in your eye. Now look at this. You can go and walk around the boiler, talk to the engineer. Now how many times can you do that on a train unless you're lucky enough to get up in the cabin?
Yeah, well, that's true, I suppose. Yeah, point.
Go on.
One for the Indians.
Thank you.
Hey?
How many cod can you catch from a train?
Got you. Good one.
Good point. Well, one for the cowboys now. Geez, I'm outnumbered here.
Life in Echuca in the old days was closely tied to the rise and fall of the river. During the summer months, paddle steamers tied up to the trees on the riverbanks. At the first rise of the river, skippers and crews would get up steam and head off to compete for cargoes in faraway places. Today, the love for the river life lives on through young people like Neil Hutchinson and Adam Auditori, the skipper of the Adelaide. These people have taken up the trade and the skills of the old rivermen with a passion.
Oh, we love it. It's one of the best things you can do in life, I think.
The paddle steamer Adelaide was built in 1866 and is the oldest wooden-hulled paddle steamer still operating in the world. She worked as a logging boat until the trade dwindled. Then, like so many other boats, she was left to die on a muddy riverbank. Eventually, the Port of Echuca restored her from top to bottom, including her magnificent old steam engines, which are a living, breathing testament to the wonders of early steam technology. This is what's left of the old riverboat Hero. Just about every boat you've seen so far looked like this when it was first rescued from the mud banks. It's amazing what a good shipwright can do. Someone with the skills of Kevin Hutchison.
Kevin, I reckon she looks like history, mate.
Oh, yeah, she looks a bit battered now, but it's no worse than our other boats. It'll just require a bit of hard work.
So where do you start?
We'll start at the bottom and finish at the top.
Good call. Okay. Oh, I see, Kevin, you've got some ribbing happening here.
We've done that side there, and now we've moved on this side of the boat.
Right.
Each one of those is bent individually. We had to make a pattern. Here's a pattern here like this. Cut one to shape, suit the boat.
All right, and that's at the top.
That's right. Hit
And
the
so
anchor line red hot.
Every rib is different.
Every rib's different, even from one side to the other, on the same frame.
Talk about hand-built. Okay. And no doubt, one fine day, there you will be with your skipper's hat on, Adam, at the front of this wheelhouse here. Boop!
I can see it now.
Yep.
But meanwhile, back on the Alexander Arbuthnot.
Here, Scott, take it.
Right, yeah, no, I got it. You don't have to stand around with a boat hook in your hand all day on a train, Claire. Sorry. that wasn't called for, was it?
An answer. That doesn't deserve an answer.
Righto, mate, here we go. Gee, we're working now.
Say goodbye to the lovely people. Okay.
Contributions gratefully accepted, thanks.
I just stand...
Enjoy your trip, thank you very much. There.
Walking stick.
Oh, no, I don't know. It looks like you need that, buddy. Well, Claire, we got them all off safely.
We did. We got the gangway in. Boat's safe back.
Thanks heaps,
What
mate.
more
I've really
could you
enjoyed
do?
it.
Yeah, good.
Been a
Well,
great
I'm really
afternoon.
glad. It's been terrific.
Yeah.
Great
See you
to
again,
meet
hey?
Yeah, I hope so.
Cheers.
But not on a train.
Ciao.
But what I like about Echuca is the fact that everything here is the real thing. That goes for the people and the place. The people love their work and they love their surroundings, which, if you took the tourists away, doesn't look much different from the old days when the port of Echuca was one of the busiest places in the country.
Comes a moment of truth in everyone's life when they have to face up to their responsibilities. That point has come in my life. I have to give the rail motor back.
That's David, the bloke who actually lent me the rail car. I've had it a bit longer than we originally agreed.
About time you showed up, Scotty.
Yeah, the run-up from Melbourne took a little bit longer than I thought. Oh, she ran like a little beauty, though. There's no doubt about these GM motors. Geez, they can cook, can't they? They're tremendous.
I was beginning to think you'd gone via Echuca or somewhere.
Well, David, look. The track was clear, train controller said. Got all the signals clear for you.
Now, while we're here in Seymour, we should have a look around because this is a fascinating place. These are the holding yards for some of Victoria's most historic carriages. Established in 1983, the Seymour Railway Heritage Centre renovates and maintains a vast array of rolling stock for V-Line, the Victorian Government Railway.
There's a steam locomotive here and a couple of diesel locomotives, but it's this carriage that really turns me on. This is the Yarra parlour car, and it's the personification of opulence for the Victorian-era rail passenger. It was built in 1906 of cedar and blackwood. You had to pay a premium to travel on this carriage, and it's not hard to see why. This is one of the finest restorations I've ever seen.
The Yarra parlour car operated from 1906 to 1937 between Melbourne and Albury. You had to change trains at Albury on the border because in New South Wales they used a different gauge.
I could really handle a journey in a car like this.
But when it comes to special journeys, there's another carriage here in quite a different league. There were merely 6 of these ever built. This is Royal Car number 4. As its name suggests, it was built specially for royalty. This car's most recent brush with royalty was in 1983, when it carried the Prince and Princess of Wales from Melbourne to Ballarat. The late Lady Di sat right there. This carriage was definitely built with the public face of royalty in mind. A single bed here, a single bed there, and in between, a discreet panel. There are some places you just have to visit, even if the train doesn't take you there. This is the old branch line to Mansfield, the line up to the high country. Foggy, isn't it? The first train rolled along this line in 1891. The last train ran in May 1977. Not a bad run, I suppose. Now the line's being transformed into a bushwalking and horse riding trail. Great new use for the old permanent way. You know how I feel, though? Still like to see an iron horse riding on it. To see her roar beneath the trees and flash by gullies deep, and hear the echo when she's gone, rush back again to sleep. Through Kerrisdale and Homewood, the green light lured her on. Click-clack o'er points and crossings, the Mansfield train was gone. When the line was opened up here to the high country, it completely transformed the sleepy little town of Mansfield. The line was kept busy hauling timber and cattle off to markets in Melbourne. Being such a pretty place with good, clean mountain air, holidaymakers and honeymooners became a regular sight on the station platform. During World War I, hundreds of horses and young men were loaded onto trains here and sent off to war.
Bruce! Hey, about time you turned up.
Hey, Scott, how are you, mate?
Pity about the trains, eh, Bruce? I had to catch Shanks's pony up here.
How long you been here?
Bruce McCormack and his brother Paul are the genuine article, high country horsemen. Their family has run cattle in the mountains for generations. This is the real reason I've come up to the high country. Hey. I hadn't been up this way for a long time, so it was high time to catch up.
You're travelling light, are you?
Oh, travelling reasonably light, mate.
Yeah.
So who have you got me on today?
Belle. Belle. Yeah, actually, she's a daughter of Psycho.
Daughter of Psycho?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
Who was the son of Turbo.
Son of Turbo?
Yeah,
So by Psycho and Turbo...
You should have a nightmare ride.
Could be messy.
Yeah.
Here we go. Cue the big country music. This is magic stuff. High country, here we come. Now, you might have guessed from Bruce's nightmare ride comment that he's a bit of a practical joker. Well, I was about to be set up again.
Good.
I can hear a few cattle down the valley there.
Plenty around, plenty around.
Yeah. How many head have you got?
A couple hundred, I think.
Yeah.
We'll find out once you count them tomorrow.
Once I count them tomorrow?
Once you count. So we blame you if we don't get them all, you see.
Right.
We'll do a count and gallop.
It's been a long ride, but we've reached Craig's hut. It looks old, but actually it's not. It was built for the movie Man from Snowy River and was left here as a tourist attraction after the filming was finished. It has some of the best views in the country, I reckon. That night, around the campfire, we had a bit of a chat. I asked the boys when did they first get on a horse.
I went up till I was 9 or 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Same, Brett?
And Dad didn't ride that early, but he wanted to make sure we rode as early as we could, so we sat on them bloody Shetland ponies, don't they? Kick and bite them things.
Mongrel things. Clouds are rolled in this morning, Brett.
Yeah, there's come in there, isn't it?
Next morning, it's up early to start the muster.
Catch up with
I reckon we dropped a few degrees this morning too.
Cattle seem to know when mustering time has come, and they're not too fussed about being rounded up. Bruce tells me that some cattle will even turn up down at the homestead on the plain all by themselves. But maybe that could be Bruce winding me up again. I fear that this is a way of life that will soon disappear from view altogether in modern Australia. Environmental pressures are slowly squeezing these tough horsemen and their cattle out of the mountains.
40 years ago, this place used to be thought of as being invincible. No one could hurt it. It's that big and wide, you know, you go at it and do this, but it's a pretty sensitive area.
A lot more people use the bush these days, and the cattlemen recognise that it belongs to everybody. I just hope, though, that in the years ahead, there's something as colourful as this to come and wonder at in the magnificent Victorian high country. I'm afraid it's public transport for the trip down to Melbourne. Still, it's a quick trip and it's comfortable. It's a quirk of Victoria's geography, I guess, but as I said at the beginning of the program, all lines lead to Melbourne. I'm heading back there now, but not before I take a slight detour. Its real name is Mount Diogenes, but this place has long rejoiced in the more evocative title of Hanging Rock. The rock is actually quite a rare example of what's known as a volcanic mamelon. Millions of years ago, the lava in the Earth's volcanic plug spilled out to form the conical shape of the rock. Inside here, it's actually hollow, sort of like honeycomb. Maybe it's a clue to the mystery of the place. When Joan Lindsay's story, Picnic at Hanging Rock, was made into a film in 1975, the rock became instantly famous all over the world as a place of great mystique. But there have always been legends and stories. There's a powerful connection here, no matter what your culture or background. It must have been important to the Aborigines, because the place has a real spiritual effect on you when you're here. There is one story, though. It's said that some time ago, a group of Aboriginal teenagers from the Northern Territory came on a visit. They climbed up here happily enough, but then one lad sensed something. His unease was passed on to the others, and they hurried down the mountain and refused to return.
What frightened them, I wonder?
You know, the thing I love about Melbourne is that amongst all the glitz and glamour,
it's still managed to maintain its original charm and character. Like the trams, what a great way to see the city. There's Liz, my old mate. She's going to show me around Melbourne in a tram. Hey, Liz. Great to see you. I'm in. Once again, power, friends, influence. Oh, Liz, excellent.
Liz Campanaro has been conducting or driving trams for over 20 years.
Hey, gee, I tell you, it's nice of them to give us this tram for the day.
Yes, well, they told me it was for someone special, so they sent it just for you, so there you go, yeah.
But the coup was getting you to take us along.
Yes, he was. Yeah. No one else was old enough, so they said, we'll send the old girl up.
Liz loves being a trammy because of the people she meets every day.
Every day is different because you look at the expression on people's faces. Some look upset, some look happy. And no, I enjoy working for the public. Taking them where they want to go safely. Well,
it's such a civilised form of transport, the trams, isn't it?
Oh, number one.
Number one?
Yeah, it's clean. It's a clean way to travel.
Yeah.
Trams are the way to travel.
Liz knows Melbourne like the back of her hand, and she's mapped out a route around the city for us today. It'll carry me to some of the main attractions.
First, I have to take you to the Old Melbourne Jail.
Old Melbourne Jail?
Yes.
Do you mind if I just duck in and have a look? Because that's where Ned Kelly is, isn't it?
Yes. The rope's still there too.
The rope?
Yeah.
How macabre. See you in a sec.
Bye.
Ned Kelly's legend looms large here at the Old Melbourne Jail. He is, without a doubt, our most famous outlaw. He and his gang killed 3 policemen, robbed 2 banks, and held up a train. The end came for the Kelly gang when they had a shootout with police at the town of Glenrowan. Even though he was wearing his famous armour, Ned was wounded and captured. When his armour was removed, 28 bullet wounds were found, but amazingly, Ned was still alive. He was taken by train to Melbourne and ended up here in a cold, dark cell. Ned was hanged on the 11th of November, 1880. The legend of his cheekiness, his defiance of the law, and the calm manner in which he walked to his death is now a part of our folklore.
It's amazing what you can see from a tram, isn't it? You can see all the naughty things that go on.
Naughty things. That's why you give them a chance.
Melbourne's kept so many old buildings, hasn't it, Liz?
I think it's nice to keep the old buildings because some of the new ones, they look nice but don't have the same feeling about them as the old ones.
Yeah.
Okay, Scott, the Brook Street Mall.
Ding, ding.
Somehow, I always end up working for my keep. This time, I pitched in by changing the points. Liz didn't tell me about the water that collects in them, though.
I hate that. Why'd you tell me? Unbelievable.
I was just going to say, be careful for the water, but you were too fast for me. We're coming towards the exhibition building.
I'm standing right about the spot where, in 1901, the then Duke of Cornwall and York, later to be King George V, declared the first Parliament of Australia open. What a great place for the birth of a nation.
It's time to bid my very special Melbourne Goodwill Ambassador farewell.
You have Have a safe journey now.
Thank you, Liz.
Take care.
Well, I came into Melbourne on a rail motor and I left on a tram.
Yes.
There's a certain symmetry about that, which I like.
To be perfectly accurate, I'm actually leaving Victoria on this ferry here, the Spirit of Tasmania.
See, sometimes you can't always catch a train. See you next time.